President Obama returns to the White House later this hour, fresh off a climate change conference overshadowed by terrorism. While the president insists a lot was accomplished in Paris, the summit will likely be remembered more for what did not happen on global warming, ISIS, and Syria than what did. Correspondent Kevin Corke wraps up the president's trip from the French capital.
Calling it an economic and security imperative, President Obama wrapped up the historic Paris Climate Summit by asking world leaders to attack climate change with the same determination used in the fight against global terrorism.
The reason is because this one trend, climate change, affects all trends. And before long, we are going to have to devote more and more and more of our economic and military resources not to growing opportunity for our people, but to adapting to the various consequences of a changing planet.
While attempting to make the climate change terrorism link, the president was forced to acknowledge the inconvenient truth that global warming or not, terrorism and war remain stark realities. Today, the Pentagon confirmed that hundreds more Americans will now head overseas to support the fight against ISIS.
We're sending, on President Obama's orders and the chairman's and my advice, Special Operations Forces personnel to Syria to support the fight against ISIL.
The move is just the latest change in strategy for a White House that has struggled to form a cohesive plan to fight the terror group. On the campaign trail, Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton rejected calls for more U.S. ground troops.
Under no circumstances would you not do that?
Well, at this point, I cannot conceive of any circumstances where I would agree to do that.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State John Kerry told Rolling Stone that the world can defeat ISIS, telling the magazine, quote, "All of that can come to an abrupt end if we get our act together." But on Capitol Hill, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joe Dunford, admitted that contrary to the president's bold proclamation about containing ISIS earlier this month,
we have not contained ISIL.
Back in Paris, the president's latest meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkish President Erdogan did little to ease tensions between Moscow and Ankara in the wake of the recent downing of a Russian military aircraft by the Turks. In fact, Fox News has learned that the Russians have expanded their military operations in Syria to include a second air base, even as the president predicted the Kremlin could eventually work with the West there.
I don't expect that you're going to see a 180 turn on their strategy over the next several weeks. They have invested for years now in keeping Assad in power.
And as if dealing with terrorism and the Syrian crisis weren't enough, the president today was asked if he was worried that agreements reached during this climate summit might be undone by a future GOP president.
You know, just with respect to my successor, let me first of all say that I'm anticipating a Democrat succeeding me.
Bret, the president followed up that little quip about 2016 by adding he had confidence in the wisdom of the American people, whatever that's supposed to mean. I should also point out we learned tonight that the Germans are prepared to send some 1,200 troops, that is, to Syria to assist in the coalition's battle against ISIS. Bret?
Kevin Corke live in Paris. Kevin, thank you.